everyone to this week's Stopping the Violence webinar. It's always a pleasure to have you and the pleasure to be here, especially talking about a very important topic that the world is facing and especially America is facing, and especially here in America when we're dealing with violence. We're seeing violence every day. We're hearing deaths and robberies and all sorts of crime activities that seemingly are prevailing within our country. And we started this because we were thinking a lot about the need for a discussion on gun violence. But as we morphed into, after we start dealing with the whole issue of gun violence, it morphed into, what causes people to pick up that inanimate object called the gun and fire upon another person and to hurt or kill someone. There are root causes to behaviors that that will allow a person to pick that gun up, hurt someone, and not think anything of it. What are those root causes? We have to explore during this time. For a couple of years that we've been doing this, we found out there's prevention programs out there. There's post programs that are out there, and there are excellent people and organizations that are heading these up. And it's been our enlightenment and pleasure to meet with them and hear their stories and the actions that they have been taking in the communities in America at large to deal with violence that occurs in our country. One of the avenues that we have taken was, or has been shared with us, is character development. What is the problem with behaviors? What are root causes of ill behaviors? We realize that a lot of that root cause is a lack of character building in a moral construct or a moral environment that helps to cultivate people's character to reduce any kind of behaviors that will lead to criminal behavior or a crime or picking up a gun or whatever it is, and that constitute a crime. In America, we have had law enforcement individuals on. They were incredible, and each one has their own ways and how they have been dealing with crime in America. We had community leaders, civic leaders, even 2 or 3 mayors have come on. Just been a beautiful experience in hearing what they are doing in their particular constituency, cities, and to deal with curbing the violence in America, in their communities and here in America. Now, one of the avenues and the reason why we're bringing this recording back on is we're going to have a open discussion about the avenue that Dr. Robert Rettiera has taken. And one of his main avenue is, creating a culturally relevant bilingual book and a series of different programs, which he calls the Barrio. And what it does is it's inspiring youth, promoting student achievement, and bringing the educational gap through social and emotional learning and creating critical thinking. These resources are reshaping the lives and the minds of our young people. And inculcated within the structure of these programs that he has created are character development and building a moral construct. And so we're glad to have, again, for an open discussion, to hear Dr. Robert Rettiera to come on again and to share with us what avenue that has inspired him to play a critical role in shaping our young people's minds, and also playing a role in reducing crime through the avenues of our young people. So let's welcome him again. Dr.
Thank you.
Robert
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome, sir. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'd like to first start off by saying that the books that I've written, although they have my name on it, it's not truly the Robert Renteria story. I mean, it has my name, but it's not my story. And the reason that I think it's working, and we see the social impact that we're making across the country and various other countries, it's everybody's story. So with that being said, I'm going to start off by, I lived a dysfunctional lifestyle like many kids, broken homes, gangs, dropping out of school, and eventually resolved to making better life choices. Joined the military. Fast forward, I honorably served for 7 years, got out, came to Chicago with $200 in a duffel bag, got a job in the commercial laundry industry, and 6 years later, I was vice president of a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. I claimed the ladder of corporate for a few more years, started my own business, and I thought I had everything I ever wanted. I came from sleeping on the floor in a musty basement to living in a house on a pond, and taking a bus or riding a bike or walking, hitchhiking. I had a Mercedes Benz, and I say all that not to impress, but to empower you, because I learned in this process that the two greatest days in your life are the day you're born and the day you realize why you're born. And I wanted to give back. So the reason I developed this program that I'm going to share with you that is working now in over 25 countries is the fact that it is addressing critical thinking skills, and it's bringing God back into the classroom. It's addressing the issue of the flag of America, to be proud, and it's addressing the whole issue of bullying, gangs, violence, drugs, school dropouts, and even that stuff called racism. So all that being said, I was inspired to write my first book in 2006 because I ran into a couple gangbangers, and they were impressed by the vehicle I was driving, and they wanted to know my secret. And when I said that the secret was hard work, they seemed pretty confused, but they shook my hand and ran up like I gave them gold. And I said, at that point, there's a story here. There's children, teenagers, and adults alike walking around lost in a culture of darkness, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to create a roadmap or a blueprint, right, to help kids make better choices, and give them hope. So I released this book here. It's called From the Barrio to the Boardroom. It took about 2 years to write the book. And when the book first came out, I really thought that I was just going to go back to work. Little did I know that my life was going to do 180, and God had another plan. So I get a call from Chicago Public Schools, and they wanted to create a curriculum for the book that addressed social emotional learning for middle schools and high schools. So I said, if you're going to craft a curriculum, I'll pay you, because I want to be able to own it, copyright it, and then donate it to schools across America, again, around the world. So a curriculum was created. Here is the framework for the curriculum. And there's the curriculum itself is a chapter by chapter outline of the book. And the reason I wanted to own it is because I wanted to donate it. With the schools cutting back, I think it was in 2018, $2.5 billion from after school programs, I felt the need to have relevant programming to get these kids off the streets. So the curriculum was created shortly after the book was released. And then I was working with RFB&D, Recording for the Blind and Dyslexic, and released a CD that year that impacts over 236,000 kids around the United States. So following the curriculum in the book and RFB&D, the kids were telling me they're reading my books to their parents. And I said, well, don't they read? They said they don't read English. So we translated the book into Spanish. And then the churches got a hold of me, and these were Black churches, pastors, and they said, we see the kids in the neighborhoods with your books, but we can't get them to church. So we want to be able to teach your book in Bible study, leading to Christ, so our kids could see the promised land. So I went through the same process, and I had a faith-inspired curriculum that was crafted around the book. And that one is also donated. So the first curriculum goes to schools and various other programs at no cost. People contact me, email, and we electronically send it to them so they can teach the book. And the ministries and the churches, they contact us the same way, and we send them the faith-inspired curriculum, again, at no cost. So I'm working with kids that are very much at risk, but I'm going to say all kids, because all kids are at risk at the end of the day. I wanted to reach the younger kids because in the elementary schools where the gang recruitment starts to happen. So I had an idea to cut the umbilical cord to the gang recruitment, and we crafted a graphic novel. This one here is called Mi Barrio, My Barrio, My Hood. And I'm proud to say that this graphic novel was in English and Spanish, but was also voted the best graphic novel in Latin America, Spain, the United States of America for addressing youth issues. So now I'm working with kids, or we're working with kids, third grade and people older than us, because I'll get into that. It's not just kids. We went back to the drawing board and we crafted an activity coloring book called Little Barrio. So this is pre-K, K1 and 2. So over the last, say, 18 years, I've made an investment personally in our children's education and their future, close to about $400,000 in building the program, donating over 40,000 books all over the country. We have developed a comprehensive, bilingual, non-generic, culturally relevant book series and program that resonates with the youth and promotes academic achievement. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm proud to say these books are being used in classrooms across America and currently in over 25 countries around the world. The success of the book and success of the curriculum is not mine alone. I mean, some people walk by sight, I walk by faith. And so I did take a blind leap of faith to serve a higher purpose. And so it's all done through collaborations and partnerships. You know, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, some people work in silos, and you can't do that. You know, it does take a village to save and to raise a child. So the uses of the book is to teach our kids literally that gang banging and violence is not a lifestyle, but a death style. And that the ultimate weapon is not a loaded gun, but an educated mind. To teach our kids that bright futures are built on a strong education, and that equal education means equal pay and it levels the playing field, that it's a great equalizer for any race. So how is it used, right? It's used to inspire people of all ages, races, religions, and economic backgrounds, right? That they can be anybody they want to be at the end of the day, and that there's no excuses, only those who refuse to make a choice. So this is about making better life choices, and it's teaching kids how to think rather than what to think. And I believe, a really clever way to get God back into the classroom, because earlier we spoke about taking God out of the classroom. You're taking the flag out of the classroom. You're taking life skills out of the classroom. And now they're trying to teach our kids how to think and what to think. Well, now you've been really more of a robot mentality, right? So this is teaching kids to think for themselves, right? To take ownership of their own lives and their own futures. So we are currently in Illinois, we're in 28 Illinois state prison libraries. And I've spoken to hundreds and thousands of inmates, not just here, but in other states, right? And have them reflect upon their own lives and realize that there's no shortcuts, right? The secret to success is hard work, determination, and education. So we're in the prisons. The youth detention centers have the books as well. And what's important about that is I'm helping with the recidivism so that our inmates get out and they're inspired to stay out. So we no longer have to worry about having them as a liability, but rather an asset to our communities and to society. So, and then now we're in the youth detention centers. So it started off in middle schools, high schools, colleges, higher education, and it found its way into the prison systems, working with, you know, the violent offenders, the gangbangers, the drug dealers, and then also working with the women who have read the book and been inspired the book to get out and stay out. Recently, I was at a restaurant maybe a month ago, and the waitress said she had recognized me from my pictures on the back of the book. And she said she had read the book while she was in prison. And I said, what are you doing now? She says, well, because of the book and the message, it gave me hope. She goes, I left my boyfriend who was involved in gangs, and I've got 2 jobs now. I have an apartment. I take care of my little girl. So we changed a life in real time in prison. Now, my goal, our goal here is to be prevention over intervention. So to catch it earlier so that we don't have to have that conversation about the whole thing about prisons. And because the prison system in America itself, the world itself, is a business. So people are making money on a lot of this stuff, sad to say, right? And there are those who'd rather put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and call it a good day. So, you know, the hard part to accept is in this process of what we're doing is I'm learning that if we fix problems, people lose jobs, and then you're wrestling with unions, contracts, and paychecks. So that's why I said earlier, we have to collaborate with those who are trying to change the narrative for our kids across America and around the world. So I believe that by this collaboration, most recently I received an Ambassador for Peace Award from the United Peace Federation. It was such an honor just 2 weeks ago that we can reach kids by standing shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, and going into those ghettos and those barrios and the slums around the world. And these kids are down there, they're looking up, they're scared, looking for help. And we tell them it's okay to ask for help, not because you're weak, because you have to remain strong. And we elevate them, we lift them up so that all of us here listening today could lift our kids up so all of them could spread their wings and fly like the angels God intended them to be. So we found a way to create what I call peace building through literacy and education, and to create at the end of the day what's called a culture of calm. So I'd like to share that it's used by police, it's used by probation, social services, homeless shelters, better women shelters have used it. I'll be in LA at the end of the week on Skid Row in Los Angeles with the homeless. That's where my father died. My father died homeless, a heroin addict, and an alcoholic. So I'm very passionate about the homeless. I'm going to be working with a shelter here in DuPage County in Illinois. They converted a Red Roof Inn with 130 rooms into a homeless shelter. There's 330 people who live there, and 112 of those are under the age of 17. So everybody at that homeless shelter has my books, and to teach them, as Dr. King said, how to make a way out of no way. So this has become a roadmap or a blueprint for people to follow, but it's not my story. A lot of us who come from hard places, we made a lot of sacrifices, but in the end did whatever we had to do legally to come out clean on the other side. So what I'm sharing with you is a story of hope and dreams and guts and desire. And yes, you can if you believe, because if you believe and you dream big, then the odds don't even matter. And that's what the message is here that I'm sharing with you, is that my story is not unique, but I happen to lay myself out there naked for the world to see, to serve a higher purpose, as I mentioned. So the curriculums are donated, again, at no cost, to schools and ministries and after school programs and anybody who's working with kids. The ministries recently, we were in Barcelona, Spain. They took my books to Barcelona to a shelter that they're using the books there to teach the kids how to read English. So it's in reverse. So a lot of these countries like Mexico and Brazil and Argentina and Colombia, they're using my books in English to teach English, right? And as I mentioned, they are in Spanish, they are in digital format. And we are looking through this conversation today to bring culturally relevant tools to the table that are working. Now, traditional learning, as I came into this space from being in business to being now doing the body of work that we've created and building our own ecosystem of people, I like to say that there's sharks and there's dolphins, right? And so there's a lot of what I consider dolphins out there, are good people, like the Women's Federation for World Peace International, who I've had the privilege of meeting with and now working with. And those I'm sure who are on this call who want to work together to change the narrative, change the landscape for our youth by taking care of each other. As I mentioned earlier, again, taking care of each other is how the foundation of this world was built. And if we build on that foundation, I believe we can be a champion of this place that we call home, to take care of our families, our neighbors, our community, our great city, and then beyond. And the platform that we've created with some of the partners, as I mentioned, would be like the World Boxing Council. I became an ambassador almost 8 years ago for the World Boxing Council. And the reason I did that is because they're mentoring boys and girls ages 18 in 171 countries around the world. So that's what I mean by collaborating with people who have bigger muscles and more contacts to help us reach kids around the world. I'm really excited, as I mentioned, to have received this award recently so that we can create this synergy and energy in these relationships, because it really does take relationships for this to work, right? This isn't about money. This isn't a job, right? This is my ministry now, and working with people who are mind-like, who want to bring change. So my change in my investment here in the labor of love that we built, it's so that we can reach kids from an academic perspective, right? You know, because when a kid gets in trouble and you tell a kid, what were you thinking? The fact of the matter is that they weren't thinking, because if they were thinking, they wouldn't have done what they've done. So these are now tools. It's a piece to the puzzle. I believe it's a very important piece. It's now being used, as I mentioned, by hundreds of thousands of people around the country. And in this, by no means, I want to put this on the table. That has nothing to do with politics. It's not about red states or blue states. It's about the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. So with that being said, I'd like to open the floor and see if there's any dialogue or conversation or questions anybody has for me today.
Oh, thank you. That was pretty incredible. Really appreciate what you were saying. You said a mouthful. And I was thinking when you were saying that they use it in Spanish-speaking countries to help learn English, but simultaneously they're
EJ,
learning
if we can,
the concepts and learning through the book. Yeah, yeah, thank you. I want to just open up a discussion. I know we have a smaller group here, but I think that he said a mouthful, and I wanted to go over it. You know, one of the things that I've heard today that I think was quite relevant in all that he shared with us was the lack of the alternative message, which does come through education. So our children are not hearing alternative messages. They're hearing one message, as he says, you know, the gangbangers, if you will, they are recruited in elementary school, but there are not any other messages, what I mean, educational systems helping kids to make different decisions. And like he said, and I like what he said, that through this educational process, we're trying to help kids make the right decision. But if they don't have a reference point, how can they make the right decision? It's impossible. So I love what his avenue, the avenue that he has been taking. One of the things that I thought was quite relevant as well was bringing God back into school. Necessity, because also once you bring God back into school, you already automatically bring the a whole different moral construct and a moral mindset that plays a very critical role in the thinking of our young people and the thinking of humanity as whole. Another thing that, as I said before, is helping youth make the proper decisions, the right decisions, but if they don't have a reference point, how can they make those decisions? And another thing is that he said that I think we don't look at the lack of after school programs that are out there, and that the government has cut down considerably the funding necessary to house or to implement after school programs. One of the other things that I thought that was also equally relevant and also interconnects with all that he was sharing was a faith-inspired curriculum that is very powerful. You know, United States, I was sharing with my wife, who is not originating from America, but I said, you know, I remember in my age category, my age group, and when we went to school, we had, before we started our class, we had to stand up, we did the Pledge of Allegiance. We had to, sometimes at that time, I think we could open up with prayer and those things. But see, that kind of stuff shapes the mindset of our young people. We have now a system out there that's not shaping our mindset of young people for moral construct. It's open, do your own thing. Whatever works for you, that's your prerogative. You're a human being. We have a whole philosophy that is out there that is not shaping the minds of our young people and allowing young people to shape each other's mind. Doesn't make any sense. One of the other points, as he had shared with him, and that is by doing this webinar that we've been doing on stopping the violence for the last year and a half or so. One of the things that he emphasized and that I emphasize is that I always say that we are islands on our own, but these different islands are doing incredible things, but they're not intersecting with one another. He says working in different silos. Now, how do we bring all those silos together? Because each one is really doing incredible things, and some might cross with one, and some might intersect. Some might, you need this part to even make the program and programs and outreach even better. One of the other things that we have all discussed on this program was that I remember when when I'm my era in school, one of the things that was a mandatory class that you had to take, what we call a shop class or mechanics class. And that was really dealing with what he said and what they have done, taking life skill classrooms out, because all kids are not prone to go to college. That doesn't mean that they're not smart, but they can be geniuses in just using their hands. And if you don't offer that, then again, they don't have a reference point to allow them to take their um, skills or God-given skills and use it in a way that is effective and use it in a way that allows them to be more, not a, become an asset to our communities, not being referred to as at risk young people. Also, in this educational process that he has devised, that it's incredible, but he is making a point that once you can lay out a certain educational program, helping people to recalibrate their thinking, helping young people or anyone to look at the world in a different way, and most importantly, in a most positive way, that also helps them to understand or find a reference point in their own said genius, what they have to offer that's probably lying dormant. Recidivism, as he has said. When those who have been reading his books, of course, we have programs that offer jobs, because people need jobs, to take care of their families and take care of their life, that they need those things that you need to sustain your life out there in the communities. But also, when it's void without education as well, maybe what you do is you allow people or set the stage for them to go back into the prison system. But he said that once they read that, it can, and as the young lady said, after she read it, and really have more of an intellectual and emotional reference point to see things from a different angle, that gave her more of a platform, if you will, to sustain her life outside of the prison, and to reduce going back or reduce recidivism. And people need hope. One of the things also that I thought that was imperative in what he shared was changing the narrative. Are we as a community, as our government and those other entities out there that play a critical role in helping that process of stopping the violence in our communities and as a nation as a whole, are they looking at these particular points more succinctly and more seriously, so that collectively we can change the narrative? And I don't think that we're doing that enough as a United States community, as a government, looking at what works well, what is the best practices out there that has what I call a measurable results, that you can measure the results. And if you have had time to come on and see many of our programs, it's very clear that there are people out there that have prevention programs that you can measure, you can see the results. So I would like now to open up the floor for others to join in, because as his topic, the underwriting of his topic is one thing. When you are educated, you help to build what? You help to build your character, a positive character. When you're educated, you help to see you can make a difference between what is right and wrong. That means that then you are exposed, or you are you can begin to see what is moral and what is not moral. So moral construct becomes part of who you are and your thinking process, your mindset. But a lot of young people out there, they don't have it. As just go back as I conclude, if you are in elementary school and you're having difficulties in your homes and your environment and your neighborhood is not conducive for positive outlooks, then when those gangbangers come to you in elementary school and recruit you, they begin to do what? They begin to shape your mindset based on their negative outlooks. And if you don't have a reference point, then how can you go in the direction that is opposite than the destructive behaviors and destructive thinking that they are pulling you into, and have pulled several young people into this, which is so much crime and killing of young people and all sorts of madness that are out there right now. But I would just like to open up the floor for any other comments that someone would like to share with us in regards to what Dr. Teria has shared with us. So the floor is open. I know we don't have many people, but
Hello.
Hi, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't really have anything to say or add, except for I'm always so impressed that when people just discover these callings, how much passion and energy and motivation there is, and I thank you very much.
no, thank you. That's so true. It's incredible, and that's what I feel we're here for, to be able to bring those people out in the forefront. And then eventually we're going to discuss how we can bridge them all together. Thank you. Dr. Madeline Clark.
And that's one thing. Thank you, Reverend Oliver. Sorry for cutting you off. That's one thing that I appreciate and I expound on, that we're not silos. We don't have to operate individually, but once we collaborate and come together, we'll be able to touch more communities. And as you were saying, when I was in elementary school, we did have prayer. We did have the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. And I think that was part of our moral fabric. So as we move forward, the school system have changed, parenting has changed. But if we could only get back to the basics, we'll be able to raise another generation that had the same principles and values. And I always like to say that all kids aren't bad kids. Even the bad kids aren't bad kids. They're just doing bad things because they don't have any guidance. So once again, I appreciate being on the program. I appreciate all that you do. And as we move forward, we have to move forward collectively. What was the name of his book again? Or do you have his email address?
What is the barrio? I'll give it to you, but I know it's called the barrio or something like that. The neighborhood.
The neighborhood.
Basically.
Okay, because this summer there's a it's in Have It in Prayer now to work with some young people, but I would love to have that book as a tool, a point of reference.
Sure. We have his number and everything, so I'll give that to you.
Okay,
and,
thank you.
Because obviously it's very impactful. It's used all over the country. Even some of the Black churches have picked it up as well. So the content, but you can listen to him and you can see that his content, his character is really pinpointing and delving into changing the moral construct of the thinking of our young people. And the point is they don't have it. Many times they don't have references, like you just said. Even bad kids are not bad kids. They're just in bad situations that has led them to do bad things. You know what I mean? But if you really touch them, and as I always share with the audience, and it was just a precious, Dr. Mallon, experience. I was in New York, maybe late 80s or 90s, early 90s. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. It was ruthless in New York back then. You know, those kids are ruthless. Those kids are a mess. And I happened to be out there. I happened to be out there at that time, you know, just selling stuff for our church, you know, and doing things for our church to help our community. And I was like in a cut, you know, where I couldn't escape. I don't know why I was in that cut. I'll never be in that cut again. But that was in reality, it was a debt. It was a death cut. And I don't know why I was up in there. And so the guy came, and I can see that he had his little boys kind of start to position himself around me where I had no out. But I can see out of my peripheral vision. And he came up and he asked me something. And then he asked to buy something. And, you know, this is exchange of money. What he was doing, he was taking like the $100 bill I had. And next thing he was telling me that I owe him change, you know, and everything. If I dare to say something, then he'll take everything, you know? And I caught it. I caught it, you know, at the moment. And I heard the Spirit of God. That's why I'm so glad this guy said we have to bring God back into the school, because God is our conscience. He helps us and guides us. And the young guy, I heard the Spirit said, when you deal with people who are used to being bad, you know, who are doing bad things, there is a part in them that still belong to God.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to deal with them in a split second, the right way, where you touch that part that's still God's, right? And I don't know, I heard that in a split second. And I just slowly reached my hand. And my spirit was so calm and loving and understanding. And I said, oh, this time, oh, I know what you're doing, you know. This time is for God. That's all I said. And I don't know why I put my hand on his shoulders lightly. I said, this time is for God. If I catch you.
Wow.
That boy looked at me, he said, what you say? You know, I said, oh, Lord. He said, what you say? I said, this time is for God. And he, just like he scratched his head vigorously like this.
Mm.
I don't know why I like you, but he gave me back my money. You see, I don't know why I'm doing this. You know, he gave me back my money. And then he said, walk. He told his boys to walk off. The other ones just wanted to go for the juggler. Oh no, let's get him anyway. He turned around and he said, don't you touch him. Let's go. And they went. That there showed me what you said.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing bad things. And also what he's saying, that if that young man had been exposed to cultural and moral and educational, even life skills type of education, that showed me that he had the potential to be a viable citizen in our community. And also it showed me that he is still part of God's son and he can respond to goodness. But how have we as a community, you know, have touched people, have created the alternative voice, where we keep sharing that alternative voice that begin to subliminally make them recalibrate some of the thinkings and some of the behaviors that they're confronted with and what they do. We don't do it enough, you see. And so that, again, from that experience, helped me to understand why this girl, when she's in the prison system, she's reading, and when they read and they read and they read, they begin to have a reference points of goodness that we already have within ourselves, because God created all of us. We are all his sons and daughters. We sound a little more messed up than others, but we're You know,
That's
so,
right. That's right. Yeah. And
so,
Reverend Ebony was on last week and she talked about working with the young people, working with the youth and
uh-huh.
different situations that she has encountered. And I commended her for her work because um, she's out there doing outreach. She never really knows what type of a person that she's going to encounter, but it's just like you said, this one's for God. And mentally, her mindset is this one's for God. And when she approached them with that love and with that gentleness, you know. And I think it's human nature to want to be loved. It's human nature to want to be accepted, and that's what causes those uh, gains to develop. They're just looking for a place to belong. They're just looking for a place to. They're just looking for a place to belong, and sometimes that's it. Um, we've had so many pastors or just leaders that's out in the community, and they have offered a different alternative to say that you might be that now, but you don't have to remain in that position, which is also a blessing.
It's true, Dr. Madden. And when you said that, many people, they're probably starving for someone to say something to them, you know, but they are not confronted or exposed to that voice that will say that. So they're probably starving. Can someone finally, I want to change, but I don't know how to change, and nobody's telling me to change. Nobody's fathering me. Nobody's putting an arm around me and say, it's okay. I understand what you're going through. And I think all our kids, they really need that. And that's not a prevailing outreach programs that we have, you know, that are out there. I always said that when we start really dealing with our young people, then they got more vicious and more vicious to elders, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But especially fathers, Black fathers and fathers, you know, when did we get to the point where we're afraid of our own children?
You will read my mind. That's right. That's true.
Yeah. 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 So I want to repeat. They were asking me what the phrase I said to the young boy, and as I said, I reached over. Someone was asking me to repeat it. I reached over and reached up, and I just said, "I understand. This time is for God." I mean, I understand if you go, but I said this time. That's the phrase I use. I never forget. And I said it in such a way that I knew God was speaking through me to his son. Yeah. So when did we get chance? When did we, those kids will kill you too. But anyway, still, we got to get to the point. we,
When the adults became afraid of the children, when the law enforcement got involved with parents disciplining their kids. That's when parents became afraid of their children. And it wasn't so much as they were afraid of their children, they were afraid of any type of legal consequences behind any discipline. That's when things really got out of control because the parent felt like they couldn't discipline the child. The child felt like they could do whatever they want to do and they would call the police on the child. But I have to tell you, my youngest son got in trouble one day and he was going to get a whooping. And he told me, he might have been 11 or 12, but he told me that he was going to call the police on me. So before he got a whooping, I went upstairs and packed his stuff. I went upstairs and got him a little overnight bag, packed his stuff, came downstairs. And he said, "Mommy, what's that for?" I said, "Because when you get finished getting this butt whooping and you call the police, they're going to take you out of here because the day that I cannot discipline you and take care of you, someone else has to." So that was my basis. But that's when it happened. That's when it started. That's when things got out of control. And there's a difference between correcting a child and abusing a child. Let's be clear. You know what I mean? But that kind of like just kind of melted all together. All boundaries was crossed, and it's been
Horrible
wild ever
since.
since. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been horrible since. Yeah. You know, there's a word that I can't remember the first word, but they were implementing this in the school, and I read about it. It was called relativism, you know, and it's another word for it next time I come out with it. What they were implementing within the curriculum of the school was called relativism, and what it meaning was that kids can determine what their moral values are, how they feel. You determine what's best for you, you see. And they started implementing that in schools in America, but they started to find out, how can an immature mind make grown-up decisions, even in areas of behavior? You see, what is right and what is really wrong. You see, so what they're saying is that you can't impose your moral construct on people, but see, a moral construct is beyond the word moral. It's what's right and what's wrong. You see what I mean? So I used to tell young boys, because, boys always talk about their prowessness amongst one another, right? How many girls they got. So that's all. I got this, and then gonna hit high five and everything else. But let that particular girl come up to be his sister.
His sister.
Then all of a sudden you see a change. Don't talk about my sister like that. So what I'm saying to this audience is that automatically, instinctively, inherently, that is in him, he knew that when it came to his sister, that there was something fundamentally wrong with that. You see? So that meant that they know that something is wrong. So it's not just a moral constraint, it's just what's right and wrong. Then why do you react like that? You see, if you see, it just goes to show there's an instinctive, there's something in you that knows it's not right. So anyway, I want to really thank you always, Dr. Madeline, for being there. And your last week, I didn't get a chance to see it, but I look at it. But I know you did a stalwart job, and on the things that you've shared. And I want to thank Andrea for coming on, because she's right. It's just amazing of types of people that have come on, these silos, if you will, have come on. And I think we've done a great job of bringing them on. I was kind of looking at EJ, so I got sidetracked. But yeah, I want to thank you so much. It's always been it's a pleasure. I want to thank everyone. If we didn't have many people today, but I know that we have a lot of people out there live who are listening, and are hearing what we're saying. And we would love eventually, EJ, to find out what our listeners are thinking as well. Well, God bless you. I want to thank, he's not here, but I will get his information, Dr. Renteria, to come and to get his information, so you can read that book and share that with others in the communities that you're also serving. God bless you, everyone.
God bless.
And yeah, always.
And thank you.
Yeah,
God
you're
bless.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Remain
Right,
safe. Remain well.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
We should do a talk show soon. It's really good.
I saw it.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
God bless. Look, I'm going to write that on my vision board, EJ.
Yep.
That's right.
All right. Take care.
Let's
All
change.
right,
Let's
sister.
change the format this year, Reverend Oliver.
Yeah.
All right. God bless.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.